Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be chatting you through all the books that I read in November and the first book that I read in December. I already filmed this once actually, but I had some technical setbacks, and that is because I got a mic. I hope you can hear the difference in the audio quality. It was really bothering me in the first two videos and I took the plunge, so I'm excited about that, and I'm just trying to figure out how best to record with it and, you know, the settings and editing and all of that. So, second time filming this. Hopefully second time's the charm, because I don't know that I want to do this 3 times. So this is my first reading update on this channel, and I don't think I'm going to stick to a very strict way of structuring these videos. I just want for today to go from the book I liked the most to the book I liked the least, just because I have a lot to say about that top book and a fair amount to say about that bottom book, and not so much to say about the books in the middle. I've had an okay past few weeks worth of reading. Apart from one book, I haven't really read anything that's blown me away. And that's fine. Some books are like that. Some books are just fine. They don't all have to be mind-blowing, amazing reads, although I would love it if they were, but I guess you need a variety to really appreciate the really amazing ones. I didn't take any notes for this, and I think I might start taking notes for my reading reviews and wrap-ups of sorts. It's not the same as when I'm writing the reviews on Goodreads. This is literally like whatever comes to mind as I'm speaking, and I'm sure I'm gonna forget things that I wanted to say about that top book, perhaps that bottom book as well. Now I'm also thinking, if I'm gonna be doing these reading reviews on camera, it might be helpful for me to have like physical notes, because it is definitely super different from writing a review on Goodreads. So the first book I want to chat to you about is Transcendent Kingdom by gyasi. I've mentioned this book in my very first video where I said it could be a potential... Soka! Why did you bite her? Yeah, now she wants to fight you. Just a second. This guy. So I mentioned this book as a potential new favorite, and it is definitely probably top 5, probably just top of all times. And as you can see, I have lots of post-it notes because this is my book club pick for November, and we're meeting about it tomorrow actually, so I'm really excited to chat about this book with the rest of the book club. We actually already met to discuss the first half of it, and tomorrow we're discussing the whole of it, which I like. I like that format of meeting every fortnight to discuss part of the book. This is actually a YouTube recommendation. I saw that on a few booktubers channels over the years, and I'm so happy that I read it because wow, it just spoke to me on a really deep level. But what is Transcendent Kingdom about, you may ask? This book follows Gifty, who is a neuroscience PhD student. She is currently finishing up her PhD, and she is reminiscing on her childhood and her early adulthood. She is Ghanaian American. Her family immigrated from Ghana before she was born, and she grew up in Alabama. She has an older brother who was a miracle child. Their parents really struggled to conceive, and then she was a surprise baby, and she was not a miracle child. Throughout this book, they go from a family of 4 down to a family of 3, down to a family of 2, and she is left with her mother, who is severely depressed. Her mother has come to visit her, and she has been sleeping in her bedroom for 2 weeks and hasn't moved from bed, essentially. Gifty reminisces on her childhood when she had her father, her brother, and then as she grew up, she loses her brother to addiction. That's not a spoiler, that is literally in the very beginning of the book, and that is the whole reason why she is doing a PhD in neuroscience, because she wants to understand if there could be a cure for addiction. And so we go back and forth between those childhood moments, those adult moments, those middle moments as well, when she's a young adult and she's moved out of home and she's discovering herself and she's navigating her mother being very severely depressed, losing her brother, losing her father. She grows up in a very religious household. Her mother is extremely religious. They go to church every Sunday. They go to church multiple times a week. But as she grows up, she is struggling with her relationship with God. Does God exist? What does it mean? All these questions. And so throughout this, we follow her reminiscing on these moments, how those childhood questions still come into play in her adulthood. And she is a Ghanaian woman in Alabama. There is quite a lot of racism in this book that's discussed. Also in terms of religion, like in her church, they're basically the only black people, and the community accepts them but doesn't really accept them. And what does that mean in terms of religion, in terms of everyday life? What does that mean for Gifty? How she views herself? I just think it was very deep, very, very deep, and it really touched me very profoundly. I think it's strange to say that I could relate to Gifty because of course, not at all the same lives, like literally nothing in common. But the questions that she asked in this book, I have asked myself as well. I don't come from a religious household at all, but I did ask myself a lot of questions about God when I was a child. And it was actually very refreshing and kind of a relief to read those things on paper. I know a lot of experiences, we feel like we're the only ones that have experienced them, but actually that's not the case. And I really love when a book really reminds me of that and really makes me reflect on those times and can make me reflect on my own relationship with the people around me. And Transcendent Kingdom did that. It was just very, very special. There were so many moments that hit really hard. The writing style is very simple, but very powerful. And I don't mean simple in a bad way. I mean in the best way possible. It's just heartfelt. It's genuine. It's authentic and it's powerful. That's really how I think of this book. It really struck a chord with me, and although the themes are very dark, Gifty's voice is such that you're able to interact with these themes without being overwhelmed by them, because Gifty has that detachment from her emotions, from those events. It's almost like she's literally just saying, oh yeah, this happened. And the this is really, really sad and dark. And she's just not feeling the feelings. Therefore, as a reader, you're able to take a step back and not be hit as hard as you could have, but in a protective way. Like, I think for me at least, that's really helpful, because you as a reader, you're able to reflect on those things. Everything about this just really, really hit me very hard, and I will be putting this book in the hands of everybody that I know. I think this is literally a perfect book club pick. There's so much to look at, so much to discuss, so much humanity in this book. It's just wonderful. I cannot recommend Transcendent Kingdom more. Like, definitely one of the top books that I've read this year. And before I move on, I really want to read you a couple of passages from this book, just to give you a taste, Memories of people you hardly know are often permitted a kind of pleasantness in their absence. It's those who stay who are judged the harshest, simply by virtue of being around to be judged. And this last passage that I will leave you with is a little bit longer, and I do need to give you a little bit of context. It really made me reflect on how we view people around us, the people that we know, how we know them, how they know us, and our expectations. Of course, my mother is her own person. Of course, she contains multitudes. She reacts in ways that surprise me, in part simply because she isn't me. I forget this and relearn it anew because it's a lesson that cannot stick. I know her only as she is defined against me, in her role as my mother, so when I see her as herself, like when she gets catcalled on the street, there is dissonance. When she wants for me things that I don't want for myself, I am angry that she doesn't understand me, doesn't see me as my own separate person, but that anger stems from the fact that I don't see her that way either. I want her to know what I want, the same way I know it, intimately, immediately. I want her to get well because I want her to get well. And isn't that enough? This book has definitely given me a lot of food for thought, and for that I'm really thankful. I will be reading Gyasi's debut novel Homegoing, and I will be reading basically anything that she publishes because this is a new favorite. Hands down. Thank you, Gyasi. The next book I want to talk about is actually a comic book, and it's called a long title that I'm going to butcher. It's there you go. Critical Role Vox Machina Origins Volume 1. This comic book is for D&D, Dungeons and Dragons lovers. Just purely for those D&D fans. Also Critical Role fans, I guess, because it is a Critical Role story. At this stage, I actually don't know the difference between D&D and Critical Role. I'm sure I don't have to explain to you what D&D is, but it is basically a tabletop game where you make up a character. They can be human, elves, dwarves, orcs, and way more. And they have magical powers, and it's a tabletop game that has been around for so many years. I literally don't know why I'm explaining it right now. I have been playing Baldur's Gate 3 for over a year now, and I wasn't into D&D before. I knew of it from the bookshop that I used to work at, where we sold D&D stuff, but I'd never gotten into it. And then, yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 happened. Let's just say it happened. And now I'm a fan. Now I'm part of a campaign with my friends, and so much fun. And this is one for the fans. If you're not a D&D fan, if you're not a Critical Role fan, you might enjoy it still. It's pretty fun. It's very action-packed. The art style is really nice, and the characters are quite funny, but most of the humor relies on you being a D&D Critical Role player yourself. There's a lot of making fun of that player and dungeon master interaction in the book, or like it's just hinted at, you know, like the classes and the abilities that you get and all of that. Like if you're not a player, you're not really gonna get it, or it's gonna go over your head. You're gonna think, what's so funny about this? It's not funny. So it is really for the fans. But if you are a fan, then I definitely recommend it. I think fun is the best way to describe it. It's got a fast-paced story. We follow 6 different characters. They are in pairs, and they're gonna come together in a big group, and they're trying to figure out why people are dying in this town. You know, the water is poisoned. Why is it poisoned? And it's basically a D&D campaign. I liked it quite a bit, and that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Now, the next book I don't know how much I have to say about this either, because it's very short. And it is The Orange and Other Poems by Wendy Cope. Now, this very incredibly short collection of poems, I was drawn to it because of the internet. I first heard the poem The Orange on Carly's channel, and I kind of get the feeling that it made Wendy Cope really popular online, that specific video, and they then decided a few years later, let's do a poem collection with The Orange as the title poem. I don't know if it's true. That's just a thought that came to mind when I was reading it. Unfortunately, The Orange was just okay. I like The Orange. I like this specific poem. I only liked a handful of poems out of the 30-ish that are in this collection. And it's a shame because I was expecting quite hopeful poems from this, because The Orange, I feel, is quite a positive, optimistic, hopeful, mundane poem. But the other poems did not give that at all. They were quite pessimistic, and they were also not very happy. And I wanted happiness, and it just wasn't. It was basically like, you can't have a good man, try again. Which was not at all what I was expecting, because The Orange is just so simple and nice. And let me read it out to you, actually. The Orange. At lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters and I had a half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do. Just lately, the shopping, A walk in the park. This is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all the jobs on my list and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you. I'm glad I exist. I understand why it's the title poem, and I understand why so many people online like it. I think it's quite simple, it's quite nice. I like how it flows, it's nice. I will say, I'm used to very different poetry. In French, everything rhymes, pretty much. Maybe that's an over-exaggeration. Take it with a pinch of salt. I am not a poetry expert. There is a rhythm to those poems, but my ear is trained to the French rhythm of poems. So I think some of the enjoyment is not in there for me. But that's fine. I do really like the orange, and I liked another one as well, the one called Some More Light Verse. I'd also read that one before, but everything else, it just didn't really do anything for me. Some of them were 4 lines, a few were 3-line poems, and they just don't go deep enough for me to feel really anything, or it's just not long enough. There's just not enough to it. If people love them, I'm glad. But yeah, it just wasn't really my cup of tea, unfortunately. I was actually gonna gift this to someone after reading it, but to be honest, I don't think it's a good gift. So it will remain in my possession until I put it in a free library properly. Say hello. I could make another cat out of all of the hair that you shed on me every day. Oh, yes. He's a very happy boy. So, Soka, what's that last book that we read? Well, that I read. Oh no, I'm eating the food. This is how we're gonna do the very last review, because he is needy. He wants cuddles now. Yes. So, the final book I read. Can I? Yes. Oh. Yes, I know. The very last book that I read in... Actually, no, it's not the last book I read in November. It's the first book I read in December. And to be honest, it was a bit of a whirlwind of a book. Yes, thanks for the slap. It's a French book. It's called Drewid, de la pluie sur les cendres by Laurence Chevalier. It is a romantasy, and it is set in Bretagne, Breze, and that's where I'm from. So I was looking forward to it, but I already knew it probably wasn't going to be amazing because one of my best friends read it earlier this year, Solène, and already gave me her opinion of it, and I was like, yeah, it's probably really bad. But you know what? I needed a book to turn my brain off while I was flying back from Melbourne, and then I just binge read it because I was like, if I don't read it quickly, then I'm just never going to finish. And... what can I say? I don't know if I'm glad that I finished it or not. I guess I am, because now I know what it's all about. And I'm kind of tempted to read the second one because there was potential in the world, but it is about Nova and Tristan. They are the heirs of rival clans, and the druids, they live under domes, magical domes, so that normal people who don't have any powers cannot see them, cannot find them, cannot go in the domes. And they get put into a forced marriage, and then she forgets her memory the day after, and she goes to the non-magical world. She gets adopted by these 2 women, she goes to university, and then she has a magical incident at the university, so she gets swept right back to the world of the druids, and then she lives with her husband that she doesn't remember, and they hate each other, or he hates her, and she's intimidated by him, and they're so horny. Oh my gosh. I kind of knew what to expect, but I wasn't expecting that much. It was a lot. Not that much happens in this book. It's very repetitive. The characters are really flat. There is some intrigue to this book, but you just never hear about it until the very end, where everything gets revealed. So it's not great. I wouldn't say that I liked it, but I'm kind of tempted to read the second one to see where the intrigue goes, because there were some interesting elements. Like, I liked the dome idea. I liked that it's basically set where I'm from, that I've never read that. I thought that was quite fun, like the whole Celtic mythology. I just wish that was explored more. Everything is just really flat on the surface and just not edited, which is a shame. And I wish that it wasn't as explicit as it is. I don't need 5 or 6 or 7 scenes like that in my books. Thank you. I know some people like it. If you like it, you do you. I don't need that. I wish it wasn't in there so we could actually have some world building. That's what I really wanted. I wasn't expecting a masterpiece, and it did what it did, you know. It came here to turn my brain off, and it turned my brain off. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this book. I already had a bit of a rant with Solène, I think. We did the Rent review together. Sorry to report, not a recommended book. But if you see me reading book 2 sometime next year, then you'll know it was time for another brain turning off kind of book. So that's that. Those are all the books that I read recently. I don't know how often I'm gonna do these. I think once a month is what most people do. I hope you enjoyed, and if anything, please pick up Transcendent Kingdom. Do yourself the favor, pick it up, read it, and please, if you have read it, or if you pick it up and you read it, please let me know what you thought of it. I would love to discuss it in the comments. And if you have any other books actually that really made you reflect, a reflective book, if you have one of those that you've read recently or not so recently that's just stuck with you, I would love it if you would let me know of it, because those are definitely my favorite kinds of books. So yes, please drop the recommendations in the comments or message me or something. I would love to hear it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.